You ready? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Please take your seats. I'd like to call this meeting of the Metropolitan Fire District, Metro Fire, to order. And I've asked Director Sheets to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Director Sheets. Appreciate it. All right, we've had our call to order. We've had the pledge, Metro Cable announcement. The open session meeting is videotaped for cablecast on Metro Cable 14, replay on Sunday, March 17th at 8 p.m., Monday, March 18th at 6 p.m. on Channel 14. Webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Open session meetings are also available for viewing on the district website at www.metrofire.ca.gov. We have the public opportunity to discuss matters of public interest within district jurisdiction, including items on or not on the agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have any speaker forms?
There are no speakers this evening.
All right, thank you very much. In that event, Chair will entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
So second.
Moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Director Sailors?
Aye.
Gould?
Aye.
Sheets? Aye. Wood?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Barnes?
Aye.
Jones?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, we have a few action items tonight. Our first one, Fire Districts Association of California, FDAC. We have nominations for Zone Director position for FDAC, Northern Zone 3. The recommendation is to nominate a member of the Board of Directors to be placed on the election ballot for the Northern Zone Director 3 position for FDAC at their upcoming conference. Chair will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd nominate Director Sailors.
I second.
All right, and Director Sailors, do you accept?
I accept.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Director Sailors?
Aye.
Gould?
Aye.
Sheets? Aye. Wood?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Barnes?
Aye.
Jones?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Action item number 2, California Special District Authority, CSDA, nominations for the Sierra Network, Seat B. Recommendation is to nominate a member of the Board of Directors to be placed on the election ballot for the Sierra Network, Seat B on the CSDA Board of Directors. Chair will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I nominate Director Sailors.
I'll second.
All right, it's first and seconded. Seeing no further discussion, please call the roll.
Director Sailors?
Aye.
Gould?
Aye.
Sheets? Aye. Wood?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Barnes?
Aye.
Jones?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, and congratulations, Director Saylor. Let us know what we can do to help with those individual elections as they come forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, action item number 3, non-exclusive contract for janitorial services, RFP award. Mr. Mark Jones, welcome to the podium.
Good evening, President Jones, directors, Chief Harms. Staff brings to you tonight a recommendation for a couple janitorial companies to service 5 of our locations. You have in front of you a summary of what we put through. Metro Fire Headquarters here, the Logistics Division, the Fleet and Communications Division, and our Hurley Way building that the Sheriff's Department occupies right now. We put a proposal out on November 27th. I had a mandatory job walk for all of firms that were available to show up. We had 13 companies show up. We received 7 proposals that were viable. One proposal that we received, one of the companies did not show up for the job walk, so we wanted to make sure that we were going to award to somebody that inspected all our facilities to see just what they were getting into. We received 7 good proposals. All of the vendors that gave us a proposal were registered with the DIR for the Displaced Janitor Opportunity Act. We evaluated all 7 proposals, and there is a misprint in your staff report. The scores were above 70 points, not 80 points. We had a little miscommunication there when we had this typed up. The same companies are being recommended. We just hit a misprint on the points that were scored on those two companies. Aside from receiving the high scores, both Universal Birding Services, who we're recommending, and Lincoln Training Center, they've got value in their staff. We had asked them various questions in their proposal about their performance, executive summary, their years of experience, references that they contract with now. The ones that provided references back to us, recommendations back to us, these two were in pretty high regard, and they stood above and beyond some of the other companies that gave us a proposal. Right now, we're paying approximately $5,200 a month, not including, including supplies from our agency. The new contract is going to be about $99.65 approximately. We're going to recommend Universal Building to do this building right here, and the Hurley Way building, and Lincoln Training Center to do the logistics fleet and the comms building. Let's see here. The increase in the price was due to, right now we're not paying for the first floor, so obviously we've got 40,000 extra square feet that we're going to be having to clean. They're going to be supplying all of the supplies, not just some of the things that we were supplying. They're going to be supplying all the supplies. And then also they're going to be a day porter service downstairs that UCD is in the contract they want to have. So those, the extra square footage, the day porter supplies were not being handled right now. That's why there's a price increase per month. So as far as a non-exclusive contract, I know that wording seems a little interesting. That was just meaning we didn't want to be bound to only have one company do the work for us. We want to be able to have more than one company in case a couple rows. Also, if we want to have another company come in and do some type of extra work, we don't want to be bound by just one company that maybe can't come in and clean our windows or do carpet service, something like that. So anyway, we're recommending Universal Building Service, and we're recommending Lincoln Training Center. So with your approval, if you get any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them for you.
Director Gould up first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Jones, thank you for all the hard work that I know your department did and some of the challenges that we faced. And I want to thank you for taking the time to really grind down on this and get to the details. And I especially want to thank you for the work you did. It's my understanding that Lincoln Training Center has a special population that oftentimes is overlooked in our workforce. And I'm just really proud that Metro is going to have those individuals participating and gaining a wage and participating. And so kudos to all of you for what ended up being somewhat of a more difficult process than we'd expected, but thank you very much for the effort. And Madam Chair, I make a motion we adopt.
A second.
All right, it's been first and seconded. Anyone else have a question or comment? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Director Sailors?
Aye.
Gould?
Aye.
Sheets?
Aye.
Wood?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Barnes?
Aye.
Jones?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. All right, action item number 4. We have fiscal year 18-19 mid-year budget. There we go. Welcome to the podium, CFO Thomas. Quite a thick book you have there, madam.
Good evening, directors, chief arms. Since I'm somewhat in disguise this evening, I will state that I am Amanda Thomas, Chief Financial Officer for the district. And I am here this evening to present the mid-year budget adjustments that are recommended for fiscal year 2018-19. So just to give you a little bit of an overview and a kind of a refresher on our budget process. So our mid-year budget adjustments are based on our second quarter budget review. And this is looking at our actual results through December 31st, which is halfway through our fiscal year, and then doing projections for the remainder of the year. So as an organization, we get together, all the budget officers do that, and the result of that are the recommended adjustments to the budget for mid-year. These recommended adjustments were presented to the Finance Committee on February 28th. We haven't made any changes to the recommendations since that date. And overall, the general fund budget remains balanced with these recommended adjustments. And I will obviously get into more of the details in terms of what that looks like as we get further in. But one thing I did want to say just at the outset is that for your information, the settlement of the FLSA lawsuit, which was recently approved by the court, it will result in additional appropriations in this budget year, 18-19, which is reflected on the budget resolution that goes to the county in order for us to actually make those payments this year. And it's about $1.4 million. That needs to be reflected in the county budget resolution. However, the district recognized that expense last fiscal year, in fiscal year 17-18. So that amount is already essentially deducted from what we see as our beginning general fund reserve balance, and it's not reflected in our expenses in our budget document, but because of a difference in the district's accrual of the expenses versus the county's accrual, it does need to be reflected on the budget resolution. So there's a difference in the resolution versus the budget document for that reason. So I wanted to explain that. And with that, we'll jump right in to look at the recommended general fund budget for mid-year. The first column on this table is showing us our currently approved final budget. The middle column is the recommended mid-year budget, and then the difference on the far right-hand column are the recommended adjustments with the mid-year budget. So you can see, looking at total revenues, we are recommending about a $1.9 million increase in general fund revenues. Moving down to look at total expenditures, similarly here, about a $1.8 million increase in expenditures. And then finally, the last category of things that we look at are what's labeled here, other financing sources, uses. These are the transfers in and out of the general fund to the other funds. And you can see that we have about a $500,000 more coming in, about a $500,000 more coming out, essentially balancing each other out. And at the very end of the day, if you look at the bottom of that middle column, mid-year budget, we're recommending a budget that has about $8,000 more revenues and transfers in than expenses and transfers out. So essentially a balanced budget where our revenues are equaling our expenditures. So looking a little bit more specifically at the changes that are being recommended from the final budget to mid-year budget, I mentioned a $1.9 million increase in general fund revenue. So going from a current budget of $202.9 million to $204.8 million. The largest component of that is an increase in our deployment revenue. So based on activity that we've seen this year, and we based this year's budget on last year, so based on now the actual activity that we've seen and projections that we have for the rest of the year, we're recommending an increase in the revenue here of $1.1 million. And that you'll see when we get to expenses. We also have some additional costs that offsets that somewhat, about $800,000 in additional labor expense. The other change recommended to revenues is a $400,000 increase in property tax revenues. So now that we've received the first installment of property taxes, we're better able to estimate what our revenue for the year will look like, and it looks like we'll have a little bit more than initially budgeted there. Turning to look at expenses, we're recommending an increase in the labor budget of $1.2 million, so going from $173.6 to $174.8 million. The largest component of that, again, is that increase for deployments, so about $800,000 in additional cost as a result of that. We also have $400,000 in additional costs for flex medics that were implemented in January, so we'll have about a half year of that cost. And then the other changes that happen in the labor budget when we move from final budget to mid-year are really reflecting how many of our positions are actually filled. When we develop the budget at the beginning of the year, we base it on all of the positions being filled, and as we move through the year, we see savings in wages and benefits because of unfilled positions, but those get offset by increased callback overtime costs because we're still filling the same number of seats every day. So those savings result related to the position vacancies are essentially offset by increased overtime costs. So there are a lot of changes within the accounts, but overall, it really doesn't have much of an impact to the total budget. Looking at our services and supplies expenses, we have a recommended increase here of about $600,000, going to a total of $27.8 million. About half of that, so the largest component of the increase, is $300,000 related to vehicle maintenance, and that is partially offset by insurance proceeds. So some of that is repair work that is reimbursed by insurance. So looking at that, sort of the last category of things, we talked about revenues, expenses, and now those fund transfers. So the increase in the transfers going out, $300,000 of that is related to capital facilities fund funding needs, which I'll talk about on the next slide. The other $200,000 is related to leased properties fund funding needs. And then, as I mentioned earlier, that about $500,000 increase in money going out is offset by about $500,000 and more money coming in from the IGT fund, and that's due to us having received more revenue than was expected for the IGTs that occurred in fiscal year 17-18. So that money has actually already been received, and we're now just reflecting that additional revenue as being transferred into the general fund. Okay, so looking at the capital facilities fund, as I mentioned, there's an increase of $300,000 that needs to come from the general fund to the capital facilities fund, and that's resulting from adjustments within the capital facilities fund. Those adjustments include a reduction in debt service of about $400,000, and that's really due to the timing of our capital lease financing. So we have not yet done the financing for equipment purchased this year, which means we won't have a payment due on that financing this fiscal year. Our first payment will be due next fiscal year. So we will pay the same amount over the next 5 years. We just won't see any of that in the 18-19 budget. We also have an increase in capital outlay. So this is equipment being purchased of about $500,000, but that is partially offset by increase in financing proceeds of about $300,000. So that means we're buying $500,000 more worth of stuff, but we're going to finance $300,000 of that, which offsets the purchase price. And then finally, in the capital facilities fund, we have a reduction in proceeds from the sale of assets. So that's expected proceeds from selling surplus district property based on what we think is actually going to occur this year versus what we thought when the budget was originally put together. We're showing a reduction there of about $500,000. So all of that together means that $300,000 more needs to come from the general fund to the capital facilities fund. Looking at the leased properties fund, adjustments in this fund resulted in an increase of $200,000 coming from the general fund, and that is due largely to the fact that we had a reduction in rental income of $300,000. That's really based on the timing of when the lease for the first floor of this building became effective versus when we thought it was going to. So because that was a little bit later in terms of a rental effective date there, it meant we had less revenue collected in this fiscal year. That was partially offset by a reduction in expenditures related to some of the first floor improvements of about $100,000. So the net impact there was an additional $200,000 from the general fund. So looking at all of this together and what are the results, as I mentioned at the beginning, the mid-year adjustments result in a balanced general fund budget. So our revenues plus our transfers in equal our expenses plus our transfers out. So essentially a neutral impact to the general fund reserve balance. Our projected reserve balance at the end of the fiscal year is about $25 million, which is about 12% of net budgeted expenditures. And that concludes my presentation. Our recommendation is to adopt the mid-year budget amendments for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2019, and I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, CFO Thomas. Are there any questions or comments from any of my fellow directors? We have A through F resolutions. Chair will start. We can begin to pass some of this stuff on action item number 4.
Madam Chair, I'll move item A, Resolution 2018-19 Mid-Year Budget for the General Operating Fund 212A.
Second.
Been first and seconded. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Director Sailors,
Aye.
Gould.
Aye.
Sheets.
Aye.
Wood.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Barnes.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Chair will entertain a motion for resolution item number B.
Madam Chair, I'll move item B, Resolution 2018-19 Mid-Year Budget for the Capital Facilities Fund 212D.
I second.
First and seconded. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, seeing none, please call the roll.
Director Sailors,
Aye.
Gould.
Aye.
Sheets.
Aye.
Wood.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Barnes.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And do I hear a resolution for our next item?
I'll make a motion, Madam Chair,
Thank you.
that we move Resolution 2018-19 Mid-Year Budget for the Grants Fund 212G.
I second it.
First and seconded. No discussion, please call the roll.
Director Sailors,
Aye.
Gould.
Aye.
Sheets.
Aye.
Wood.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Barnes.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion for resolution item number D.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we adopt 2018-19 mid-year budget for the Development Impact Fees Fund 212I.
I second it.
First and seconded. Questions, comments? Proceed with the vote.
Director Sailors,
Aye.
Gould.
Aye.
Sheets.
Aye.
Wood.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Barnes.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, Chair will entertain a motion for item E.
Madam Chair, I'll move item E, Resolution 2018-19 mid-year budget for the Leased Properties Fund 212L.
I will second that.
First and seconded. No comments or questions, please call the roll.
Director Sailors,
Aye.
Gould.
Aye.
Sheets.
Aye.
Wood.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Barnes.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. Now we have item F. Do I hear a motion for that resolution?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion, we adopt the Resolution 2018-19 mid-year budget for the IGT Fund 212M.
I second it.
First and seconded. All right, no comments, questions, please call the roll.
Director Sailors,
Aye.
Gould.
Aye.
Sheets.
Aye.
Wood.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Barnes.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you very much. All right, moving on to reports, we have President's Report. I wanted to thank Director Sheets for stepping in to chair our previous meeting. I was in attendance at a biannual strategic planning conference for the State Association of LAFCOs. Very productive. We're looking at new dues structures and prioritizing legislative items for the State Association to address. So thank you, Director Sheets. Appreciate that. And also on a very tragic note, I would like to, at the end of our meeting, call for a moment of silence for Captain Kim Fong's 12-year-old daughter, Hannah. She had an unexpected medical event and passed away on March 3rd. There will be a celebration of life tomorrow, March 15th, at 1 p.m. at the Fremont Presbyterian Church in Sacramento, and that's at 5770 Carlson Drive in Sacramento. So we will have a moment of silence at the end of our meeting out of respect for Hannah and her family. All right, let's move on to the Fire Chief's report.
Good evening, directors. Tonight, there's probably a few of our members that are not sleeping well. Tomorrow is the captain's test. So there was a few of them running around here yesterday, the day before, for some training, and they're trying to cram everything they can right before that test. We had the opportunity, myself and Chief Bridge went a week last Monday and spent the morning with them, and they had a captain's academy that we sat and we went through that. I know that Chief Cassantini and Melissa was there in the afternoon, but I think our presentation was the best of the day is what I heard.
Yeah.
That's what I heard. That's what I'm sticking with all the way through
People are
there.
telling you.
That's what I'm telling. That's what they told me over there. On March 1st, Engineer Kevin Olson, 25 years on the job, retired. We have a computer system supervisor position that is open internally and externally that they're looking at a new person in there. We had some reassignments of some engineers, Brendan Brown and Rich Walker, to fill the dozer position as people go through there. That's a long training program for them to be able to go out, get certified, and then after certification, just to get experience out there. I had the opportunity to go out there. They did not ask me to put in for that spot. Meetings that happened, we had a cap-to-cap planning meeting. It was very high-tech, and it went not well, but it was a good meeting that we had as far as the rest of it, of planning out our trip to DC coming up. A number of meetings with command staff and with the union. Attended the Firefighter Burn Institute along with Director Jones and Director Wood on the 2nd. Yesterday, or this week on the 12th, we had our 2x2 meetings with Citrus Heights. Director Gould was there along with a number of their staff and board members that were there. We talked about community services events in Citrus Heights, some response stats. They're working on some issues they have with mobile home and code enforcement over there. Our contract for the hazmat with the city council. And they had done a field trip down to Fairfield to look at a public safety pathways, a high school, actually, what was it, fifth grade? Fifth through 12, which is built just around the fire service and the police, and how they had put that together. And Citrus Heights has had quite a bit of interest in partnershiping with the school district over there to see if they can do something similar in that area. So we're gonna kind of be that assistant with them. Today we kicked off the 1920 preliminary budget and started looking at mid-year adjustments here, but already starting the next budget as we move forward. Two things for your calendar. Just on the consent item was the retirement, different members or resolutions. And so next Friday, March 22nd, is the actual retirement dinner that the association puts together. And then another one for your calendar is March 28th at 10 a.m. at Station 101 will be our first fire station memorial dedication. If you remember, in January, we came before you and talked about a program that had been a policy that had been on the books for years but had never been implemented. The work through labor management and through a number of folks to figure out exactly what we were going to do to meet the policy and to be able to move forward. And so our first dedication is to firefighter Jim Saunders, March 28th at 10 o'clock at Station 101. That ends my report, unless you have any questions.
Questions for the chief? Hearing none and seeing no questions. Thank you very much, Chief. Going to operations report, Chief Bridge, welcome to the podium.
Good evening, directors. Eric Bridge, Deputy Chief Operations. As Fire Chief mentioned, last week was a busy week for many of us. Many of our members are attending what we put on with our training division, and many of our members out in the field. We put on a Captain's Academy to help them prepare for, which begins tomorrow, is the written test. And then at the end of the month will be the actual assessment center. So we've been doing a lot of training and getting our members ready. So it puts a big demand on a lot of our staff, but we're up for the challenge because we've been dedicated for this professional development program we've been doing here for about 3 years now. And speaking of which, we had this week, we had a few of Chief Wegener and Chief, we got Jenkins that put on the professional development program with Wildland was the emphasis. So we're continuing to put on some really good training for our members, and I'm glad to see the turnouts that we're getting and the numbers that we're getting. So one thing I do know for sure is if anything we're doing too much of is it's training, but I don't think you can really do too much training. So it's full, though, but we got a full training calendar. With all that, though, in the midst of all that training that's going on, we continue to provide good service delivery out there. We're running close to 4,000 calls since our last board meeting. We've had 7 building fires. We've had 2 water rescues. And with all the water that we have and a lot of the special operations type rescue calls that we do have, I've been fortunate to bring on Battalion Chief Chris Green, who is going to be our special operations battalion chief. He's going to be he's a tremendous talent. He's going to be providing some support and oversight for many of our special operations programs. So he started Monday. He's getting his feet wet, so to speak. And yeah, no, that was free. No charge on that. But think of anything else for you? That's really it. We maintain the 72% transport. That's everything staying status quo there. And we had about 3,000 EMS dispatches since the last board meeting. So those are my report for tonight, unless you have any questions.
Any questions for the chief? All right, thank you. Thank you, Chief Rich. Next up, firefighter local 522 report. Next up, 522 report. Welcome to the podium, Mr. Trevor Jamison.
Good evening, President Jones, directors, chief arms, and staff. Once again, it's always great to be before you. I just want to first start off and say thank you to, from the previous, the policy committee meeting, Melissa Maddox presented a policy about non-suppression, out-of-class pay. The process to get to that went well. A meet and confer went very well, so I appreciate with Melissa and Chief Castantini. I also want to tell Amanda, great mid-year budget. I always love being here for her budget reports. So 522 Executive Board was in Washington, D.C. on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and got back yesterday. It's great to go back there. I know some of you going back for cap to cap or been back there, but it's great to get back there. There's so much that goes on with this organization and 522 and public safety and delivering that service and what goes into it. But to be able to go back there and represent 522, Metro Fire, and actually sit down with our Congress members and have discussions and make an impression on them. One of the big talking points this year for the IFF is the HERO Act, sponsored by Ami Bera, who has he basically serves our jurisdiction here. And that's helping emergency responders overcome, having to deal with mental health and trying to do the studies to find out how to help serve our members who are struggling. And he actually was able to get up there and speak. And so there's a lot of support. It's great to see that come out of Sacramento. There are many members here who have helped with all different levels of mental health, whether it be peer support or just working on and deployed to the campfire, for instance. So it's great to see that coming out of Sacramento. I think it's something that we can really help push forward. Also, obviously, I know we're working hard. There's a lot of good dialogue. We are still working on the contract. We are still out of contract. I will maintain that 522 has always had a good heart and come to this with a manner of professionalism, preparedness, and education. We are prepared to bargain in good faith. And I think we are doing that. And I want to maintain to you that that's where we still are, and we still hope to get this done in a timely fashion. Finally, President Jones, he spoke to the membership got punched in the gut, I think, recently. And I just got to say that, man, I'll try not to get emotional on this one, but you represent, you as elected officials have this amazing group of people that you get to represent, and in and day out, they deliver service that is second to none. And I believe that. I believe Metro Fire is one of the preeminent fire departments in the country, if not striving to be the best. And they do it day in and day out for the public, people they don't know. But it is special to see them take care of people they do know. And I hope y'all can make it tomorrow. But Captain Kim Fong is a good friend of mine, and it's been tough on the membership, but they have really risen to the occasion to take care of one of their own. So thank you for that, President Jones, and appreciate the support that you all have given throughout the time. So thank you very much. Unless you have any questions, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much, Trevor. Thank you. All right, our next item, committee and delegate reports. The executive committee is up first, and we have nothing to report and no meeting scheduled. Communications Center, JPA, AC Wagaman, welcome to the podium.
Thank you, President Jones, directors, and Chief Harms. Good evening. Tyler Wagaman, Assistant Chief of Operations, speaking on behalf of the Comm Center Board this evening. We last met on March 12th. With that, we reviewed a quotation from Northrop Grumman for our upgraded CAD system. It's about a 104-page document, and so the comm center members are going through it as we speak, and they're going line by line. With that, they also made a recommendation, which we approved, to bring on a project manager to oversee this upgrade, and her name is Linda Biaggi. She comes with over 20 years of experience in the realm, so we're happy to have her on board, a part of the team. And fingers crossed, if everything goes as planned, we're hoping to kick this new CAD project off on April 1st. April 1st. The board will meet again on March 26th here in this board chambers. Unless you have any questions for me, that concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Chief Wagaman. Appreciate it. All right, next up, we have California Fire and Rescue Training, JPA, Chief Shannon.
Good evening. California Fire Rescue Training, JPA, has not met for some time. We will meet April 18th, 2019, 4 o'clock, across the hall in the Sask. Thank you.
Any questions for Chief Shannon? All right, thank you, Chief. All right, the Finance and Audit Committee, to announce their next meeting is March 28th, 2019, 5:30 p.m. in these chambers. Policy Committee, Director Gould.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This evening, the Policy Committee met. After a vigorous campaign, we elected a vice chair. Director Clark will serve in that role, and then they went to the bottom of the barrel and found me as a candidate for chair. So I will serve in that position at their request. We then had an opportunity to listen to a great report relative to the non-suppression policy of out-of-class work, and that was well done, and it took no action. It was an administrative policy where we just listened and asked questions, and so that ends my report, Madam Chair. We'll meet, if all things go well, and I believe they will, April 11th at 5:30 in 2019 in these chambers. They're suggesting we will have many policies to review and go through. We look forward to that time.
Thank you, Director Gould, appreciate that. All right, we're going to move to board member questions and comments, and this time I'll start all the way to my right, and we'll go through. So, Director Saylors.
I'd like to thank everyone for being here tonight, and everyone for their good presentations, very informative. I'd like to extend my condolences to Captain Kim Fong's family. That's very tragic, and I just have no words. I cannot begin to comprehend. And with that, I will pass it on down the line.
Director Gould.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Two things. Just want to thank all of the men and women that retired. It's amazing to me. I look at that list and think of the hundreds of years of experience that has now the vacuums created. And what a great and awesome challenge we have to figure out a way where we can fill that void. It's just amazing to see those folks, and I wish them the best, and I hope that they don't ever come around here and enjoy their retirement if they can. We always like to see them out doing things in the country, so that's wonderful, and thank you to all of them for their service in the community. And then finally, as my colleague has just mentioned, it's very difficult to talk about a family member, losing a family member, and I won't even try. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Director Gould. Director Wood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say thank you. As the chief said, I volunteered for the Firefighters Burn Institute crowd feed fundraiser a couple weeks ago. It was great to see the chief and his wife and Director Jones there, and look forward to seeing more people at the next fundraiser, which will be the Tropical Affair in June. And I would hope that we have more than the 5 or 6 directors we had last year. And again, condolences to Captain Fong and his family. There's not much that can be said beyond that, and I'm really sorry to hear about that. Director.
Thank you, Director Wood. Director Clark.
Yes, I'd like to extend my condolences to the Fong family for the loss. Also, I'm very grateful to Purchasing Agent Jones and his crew for the job they did with the janitorial issue. It was difficult, you know, and I also like to thank Chief Shannon for keeping us informed on, you know, proceedings of what was going on. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Director Barnes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just congratulations to all the retirees. Again, I hope they were able to enjoy their retirement for as many years as they got to work, because they definitely earned it. We just touched on it with the Omni Bear and the Hero Act, and what a lot of these members take into retirement. We hope that they have a healthy and happy retirement, so good luck to all of them. On the captain's test tomorrow, good luck to everybody taking the test. It is a stressful time. Anytime you're taking a test against your peers, it does create some anxiety. But I want to say good job to the leadership of this agency and putting on the job development or the professional development courses. I think in many professions that's needed, and to identify that 3 years ago and have that come on today, that will lower anxiety as much as possible prior to taking a test. So good job for all that. And Captain Fong, I just want to thank Chief Harms and Trevor. Thank you for the updates as we went through. As it was said earlier, you know, nobody asked questions about what we do to go protect the public, but when it's one of our own, to hear about the wagon circling around one of our own and help out, it's heart-wrenching, because there's no answers, especially if someone at that age has taken so soon. But thank you for the updates. Thank you for being there for them. That's all we can do is support and hopefully uplift, and we get past this. But thank you for the time, Madam Chair. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Director Barnes. Director Sheets?
Good evening. I just wanted to say that I look forward to attending both the March events, and I will be at the Tropical Affair. It's always a great event. Best wishes to all of the retirees, and Godspeed, and hopefully they are going to enjoy that time. And best wishes to all those the members who are going to be doing the captain's test tomorrow. Also, I would like to extend my thoughts and my prayers to Captain Fong and his family. That's all.
Thank you, Director Sheets. Everything that's important has been said, so before we adjourn to closed session, let's rise now in that moment of silence for Hannah Fong, please. Thank you. We'll now adjourn to closed session.
Trevor, can you send me the address?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Resume will be reopening open session for the board. John Lavra, Council, would you please report out for closed session?
Yes, the board met in closed session with council regarding anticipated litigation as set forth in the closed session agenda. No action was taken.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lavra. I hereby adjourn this meeting until 2 weeks hence.